Okay, so this is going to be an all fours wrist stretch series. So for these, we'll basically be combining a few different ways to stretch through your forearms and wrists. The first couple of variations will be a little bit easier to get in the position. We won't have as much required range of motion through the wrist to actually get into the stretch, whereas the third variation and alike will require you to have a bit more range of motion to actually get into the stretch without feeling uncomfortable or pinchy through the wrist itself. So the first one is just in this all fours position with the fingers facing forward. And then what we're going to try and do is just make sure our hands are over our shoulders, knees are over our hips. Cool. And then all we need to do is keeping the elbows straight, not like, hyper extended straight, but just softly straight, is you're just going to start to lean forward. And already in this position, I can feel a bit of a stretch through my forearms and into my wrist. And then we can sort of add a little bit of a dynamic stretch to it. We'll be leaning forward, feeling a stretch and coming back, running through that a few times. And then we can go into where we're leaning forward, feeling that stretch, and then lightly pressing our fingertips and the fronts of our hands into the ground, which will activate our forearms and the muscles that sort of cross through the wrist. And then hold that for 5 seconds and then come back. Make sure we're maintaining our nasal breathing throughout. Same sort of thing, leaning forward, pushing down lightly into the ground, and then coming back. Cool. A way we can also change this is to manipulate where our elbows are. So as we come forward, alike to the foot, we want our elbows to sort of follow into internal rotation. So I'm trying to almost get my elbows to face the camera in this scenario. I don't want them to be facing back because that blocks me as I start to go forward. I want them to, as I lean forward, almost come out, and that's going to enhance the stretch and almost flatten the bottom of your hand, the palm of your hand into the ground. And then as we come out, same sort of thing, pushing down through the fingers, holding for 5 seconds, and then coming back and letting our elbow naturally sort of point back towards our body. And again, we can slowly pulse through that, turning the elbows out, feeling that stretch, pushing the fingertips down lightly, holding, and then naturally coming back, letting the elbows point towards our body. Cool. Second variation I want to go through is just the side to side. So the fingers are going to face just away from us like so, and then you can lean and really focus on one side at a time, leaning to a side, pushing down if you need to. Otherwise, you can just do it very simply by feeling a bit of a stretch, letting that elbow sort of point towards that index finger away from us, and then coming each way like that. Cool. So that's the second variation. Third variation is going to be the hardest, and it's going to make you or put you in a position where your fingertips are facing yourself. And again, already just even getting to the position, I feel like quite an intense stretch to the front of my forearms and into the wrist. And some people might get a little bit of a pinching in the tops of their wrist or backs of the wrist. Cool. So if you feel that when you get into this position, if it's nothing which is like too painful, you can sort of try to just come forward slightly, and that'll reduce the amount of stretch you have, and that should be more tolerable. Otherwise, you can stick with the other two variations. But same principles apply with this. We can sort of just lean back in this case, feel that stretch, lightly push down through the fingertips, and then come back, and then repeat that process.